Yo, what's up guys, it's King Sean here, back with another video, and in today's video, I'll be giving you guys an updated top 30 visits list for the Washington Commanders. This will actually be part 1. I'll be talking about 4 to 5 players in this part, and then I'll be talking about 4 players in the next part, so stay tuned for that video as well. But before we get into this video, make sure you guys leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications, on the road to 4K subs if you could. Hit that sub button, I'd really appreciate it. And with that out of the way, let's get straight into the video. Alright, so we're going to discuss Michael Penix Jr. first, and it was reported by Jordan Schultz, I want to say last week, kind of late to this, but he said things are heating up for Washington quarterback Michael Penix Jr. Sources say he had dinner with the Giants in Seattle after his pro day, followed by a private workout with the Vikings in Seattle. Penix will have top 30 visits with the Broncos, Falcons, Raiders, and Commanders per multiple sources. It's kind of interesting that he's going to have a top 30 visit with the Falcons because, the Falcons did just sign Kirk. Maybe they would draft him maybe in the second round or trade back up into the first round for him maybe and have him sit behind Kirk for 2 or 3 years. Maybe we'll see, but he is pretty old, but we'll see about them. But this was to be expected. We're going to meet with every single quarterback in this draft. Well, not every single quarterback, but every single top quarterback in this draft class. Michael Penix Jr., obviously, Drake May, probably not Caleb Williams because he's going to go number 1 overall to the Bears, but we're going to meet with Jayden Daniels as well. Maybe Bo Nix, maybe Spencer Rattler. We shall see. But Michael Penix Jr., I kind of like Michael Penix Jr. I'm not going to lie now. I have been seeing a lot of reporters, a lot of analysts saying that he might go in round 1. I personally don't feel like, well, there's a chance, okay? I'll say that there's a chance. Maybe he goes to the Raiders at 13. Maybe he goes to the Broncos at 12. We shall see. Maybe he goes top 10. There's no way he's going top 10 in my opinion. Maybe the Giants decide to trade back up into the first round for him, or the Raiders or the Broncos. We will see, but I feel like he's not going to go in the top 20 of the draft at all. I feel like he'll go late first, early second, or mid second, just in the second round in general. Maybe he even falls to the third round. I feel like he's receiving the same hype as Will Levis did, Malik Willis did, and Hendon Hooker did back in 2022 and 2023. So we're going to see what Michael Penix, but like I said, I like Michael Penix. He's not my favorite quarterback prospect, obviously. My favorite QB prospect outside of Caleb Williams is Drake May. Jayden Daniels is right there, though, at 3. But Michael Penix Jr., he isn't a bad QB prospect. He's got a pretty good deep ball. He ran like a 4.5 at his pro day the other day. People were saying he ran a 4.4. It was not a 4.4. It was like a 4.5, maybe even 4.6, but he ran a pretty solid 40. He has a really good deep ball. He's good at, taking leading defenders off of coverage and hitting his receiver in stride. So he's really good at that. His injury history, though, is pretty, he's had, I'm pretty sure, he tore his ACL twice on the same knee, which is absolutely insane. I'm pretty sure he injured his shoulder twice, the same shoulder. So the injury history is pretty bad with Michael Penix. He's also up there in age. This past season was his 6th season in college, which is pretty crazy. He's 23 years old right now. After the draft, he'll immediately turn 24. Him and Bo Nix. Bo Nix is a few months older than him. Bo Nix, I want to say, he's 24 actually. Bo Nix is 24. I think he turned 24 back in February. So Michael Penix Jr., he is up there in age, and if a team like the Falcons were to draft him, he would maybe sit behind Kirk Cousins for like a year or two, probably 2 years, because his deal with the Falcons is 4 years, but it's really the first 2 years are fully guaranteed. So it's really a 2-year deal with Kirk and the Falcons. And Michael Penix Jr. sitting behind Kirk Cousins, for like 2 years, I don't think that would be a great idea for the Falcons. I would much rather if he were to go to a team like, say, the Giants, who have Daniel Jones for at least 1 more season, so Michael Penix could sit behind Jones. Or like the Raiders, they have Gardner Minshew. He's a premier backup in the NFL and a solid starter. Or the Broncos, who I don't even know who their starting quarterback is right now. I want to say like Jarrett Stidham or someone else, because they lost Drew Lock, obviously. So I don't know who the starting quarterback is right now. So maybe he goes to one of those teams. But I feel like the Falcons aren't the best fit for him, considering he's up there in age. And if he were to sit behind, Kirk Cousins for 2 years, in his 3rd year, he'd be like 26 or 27 years old. So I don't think the Falcons would be the best fit for him. But back on track, we're not going to draft Michael Penix Jr. at 2. Maybe we draft MHJ at number 2 overall, or a tackle, and then trade back up into the first round, or select Michael Penix in the second round if he falls that far. We shall see, but this is to be as expected. We were always going to visit with Michael Penix Jr. All right, so it was reported by Ben Standing that we're going to have a pre-draft visit with Jayden Daniels, and this is pretty obvious. I'm not going to spend too much time on Jayden Daniels because we knew we were going to bring him in the building for a top 30 visit. Jayden Daniels, obviously, he is one of our options at number 2 overall. Like I've been saying all offseason, it's going to be between him and Drake May. I don't care who we take at 2. I do prefer Drake May a bit over Jayden Daniels, but I still would love Jayden Daniels on my team. I mean, imagine the things he would be able to do with Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator. Man, it would be amazing. Obviously, his athleticism shows out. I remember, I'm pretty sure it was against Florida. I think it was late in the season, like mid-season. LSU played Florida. He had like 600 total yards. I think like 200 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then like 400, 300, 400 passing yards, something like that. He went off against Florida. I remember watching that game. He looked absolutely dominant against Florida. I would love to have Jayden Daniels on my team. My best comps for him is like a better, you could say, I would comp like Randall Cunningham to him, or maybe like Street Scores. Go check him out, Rico from Street Scores. Shout out to him, amazing Washington Commanders YouTuber. But he comp Jayden Daniels. His comp for Jayden Daniels is basically a better Jalen Hurts coming out of college, and I feel like that's a really good comp for him. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he was a great running quarterback in college, but he just wasn't a very accurate quarterback. He wasn't a great passer. But once he got with Philly, and once Philly, he gave him some good weapons like Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, DeAndre Swift was there for a season, Dallas Goedert, and other guys as well. You could see, his development, being a passer, it really improves. And Jayden Daniels, he already has that down. So, Jayden Daniels, I feel like he has the higher floor than Drake May. But the reason I like Drake May more than Jayden Daniels is because I feel like Drake May has a higher ceiling than him. But like I said, Jayden Daniels, the wonder, he would come in here day one and be a very, very good quarterback. Kind of like C.J. Stroud, because I feel like C.J. Stroud definitely has the higher floor than Bryce Young. But, Bryce Young, he could potentially, be better than C.J. Stroud one day, because I feel like he kind of does have the higher ceiling. But C.J. Stroud, obviously, he's been very dominant in the NFL. But back on track to Jayden Daniels, this was pretty obvious that we're going to meet with him. Like I said, the athleticism, he's a good pocket passer, good throwing on the run, has a very, very good deep ball, has a top 3 deep ball, or top 3, top 4 deep ball out of the draft, the quarterback draft prospects, in my opinion. And he's pretty good at throwing over the middle. Now, I've seen a lot of people saying, oh, he's not good at throwing over the middle. He's not good at throwing over the middle. He's pretty good at throwing over the middle, okay? Don't listen to the Twitter GMs, all right? They're wrong. Jayden Daniels, he's good at throwing over the middle. So overall, Jayden Daniels, I would love to have him on my team. And this pre-draft visit was as expected. All right, next up, we got Chop Robinson. And Chop Robinson, he's probably like my second favorite edge rusher prospect, maybe just behind Laiatu Latu, because Latu is an absolute beast. I mean, he's a different breed. He's the best edge rusher prospect in this draft, in my opinion. I love Dallas Turner, but Laiatu Latu, he's special, man. He's special. But Chop Robinson, first of all, a little bit biased, because he is from the DMV. He is from Maryland. I want to say he's from Gettysburg, Maryland, so not too far from where I live. But, man, Chop Robinson, he's an absolute beast. He measured in at 6'2" and 7/8 at the combine, so he's basically 6'3", and he's 254 pounds. So a little lighter, a little smaller than your average edge rusher, but that's still not bad. I mean, a lot of comps Chop Robinson has been getting is Micah Parsons, and I don't think he will ever be Micah Parsons. He could be kind of similar to Micah Parsons, but he will never be fully like Micah Parsons. But, Dan Quinn, when Micah Parsons was coming out of the draft, he was projected to be the starting middle linebacker for whichever team drafts him. But when he got to Dallas, Dan Quinn looked at him and said, we could play him off the edge, because he had the intangibles, he had the traits to play off of the edge, to rush the quarterback, to pass rush. And it worked out perfectly. I mean, double-digit sacks in every single season of his career so far, which is very impressive. And, I don't doubt that Michael Parsons would have been a beast to whatever team he went to. But, man, Dan Quinn is the guy who really unlocked his potential, in my opinion. So, back on track to Chop Robinson. He ran a 4.48 at the combine. Montez Sweat holds the record for the fastest 40 ran by a defensive lineman at the combine. He ran a 4.41, which is, I mean, Montez Sweat, he's 6'6", 260 pounds. So running a 4.41 back in 2019 at the combine, unbelievable right there. But still, this is very impressive by Chop Robinson, who is 254 pounds. He has great bang, great explosiveness, and I watched a couple Penn State games last season, especially the one against Maryland and the one against Ohio State. He wasn't amazing against Ohio State, but man, against Maryland and other teams last season, I mean, the explosiveness just showed off the line. He gets under the tackle easily with his bend. I mean, his bend is absolutely elite. That's something you cannot teach at all. He has elite bend, the way he gets to the quarterback so fast. Now, his production, his production is what may cause his draft stock to slip a little bit. Want to see if I can pull up his production real quick. But if I'm not mistaken, he had about 4.5 sacks this past season. Or he had 4 sacks this past season, sorry. In 2022, he didn't have a single sack with Penn State because he just transferred to Penn State that year. Because in 2021, he was with Maryland. He had 2 sacks along with, I can't find his tackles for losses, but he did have 19 tackles that season. But this past season was his best season with 15 total tackles, 12 solo, 3 assists, 4 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. And I'm pretty sure he got injured midway in the season against Ohio State or another team. I'm not 100% sure. But Chop Robinson, he didn't play a full season last season, which is unfortunate because he was looking pretty solid. I mean, 4 sacks in a couple games, well, through midseason, that's pretty good. So it sucks that he got injured pretty soon because he was looking very good. But his limited production, I mean, only 6 sacks in his entire career, that's not great. His production could cause him to slide a little bit. I've been seeing some mock drafts having him fall to 36 or 40 for us, and some mock drafts having the Lions or the 49ers taking him at either 29 or 31, I'm pretty sure. So I would love Chop Robinson on this team. I mean, the wonders he would be able to do with Dan Quinn, Joe Wood Jr., I feel like they can unlock his max potential. His ceiling is through the roof, in my opinion. And if he just lands on a good team with the proper defensive coaches, like us with Dan Quinn and Joe Wood Jr., I feel like Chop Robinson, he could be a very good defensive end in the NFL. All right, so the next player we have up here is actually a pretty interesting player. Penn State offensive tackle. He played right tackle at Penn State. Kaden Wallace. He has a pre-draft 30 visit set up with the Commanders, and he's a pretty interesting prospect. He has 3 years of starting right tackle experience with Penn State, which is very good. Always like to see these experienced guys. I think he's a senior or a 5th-year senior, 4th-year senior, not sure. But he's been pretty solid over his career. He's gotten better every single season of his career, in my opinion. In his 2021 season, his first year as a starting right tackle for Penn State, he played in a total of 849 offensive snaps, allowed 5 sacks, allowed 4 hits, and 26 hurries. Not a great season, but in the following season, he did play only 8 games, so about half the season, well, more than half the season, but he did get better, playing 340 offensive snaps, allowing only 1 sack, no hits, and 11 hurries. That's pretty good right there. And then his following season, well, this past season, 2023, he played in all 13 games, had a 68.8 PFF grade. He played in 670 offensive snaps. He allowed 1 sack, 1 hit, and 11 hurries. So he only allowed 1 more hit the following season, and that's playing all 13 games compared to playing only 8 games in 2022. So that is very impressive right here. I've heard of his name about once or twice before during this pre-draft process. Him and Olu Fashanu, they were a pretty nice tackle tangent when Penn State over the past 2 or 3 seasons. Let's read off some of his strengths real quick. Per NFL.com, he displays tenacious effort to stay connected to his blocks. He does a nice job at recognizing twists, sliding feet with inside moves, as well as spin moves. That's something I noticed on the little tape I have watched on him so far. Might watch some more tape on him throughout this pre-draft process, and if we were to draft him as well. He pass sets with good posture and proper weight distribution, so that's all good right there. Now, he may need to lower his pad level a little bit when he gets into the NFL to find more displacement and push against edge rushers. So he may need to lower his pad level a little bit, but that's an easy fix right there once he gets into the NFL. He can also be too deliberate and telegraphed with his pass punch. So that's something he needs to work on as well. But I feel like those can be fixes as well. Obviously, we hired Bobby Johnson this offseason, who, isn't amazing. I mean, the Giants' offensive line allowed, 85, 86 sacks last season, which is pretty horrible, like really bad. I'm pretty sure that's the second most by offensive line in a single season in NFL history, only behind the Eagles in some year. I completely forgot that date. But yeah, their offensive line was pretty horrible last season, and we brought in their offensive line coach. I trust in Dan Quinn and Adam Peters. They have, given me no reason not to trust them. But, I am a bit skeptical, about that hiring. But guys like Anthony Lynn, and Brian Johnson, they should, kind of hide, the weaknesses Bobby Johnson's offensive line had last year, because they're pretty good. Brian Johnson's our run game coordinator. Sorry, Anthony Lynn is our run game coordinator. And then Brian Johnson is our pass game coordinator. And Cliff Kingsbury, he's a really good offensive coordinator. So they should kind of hide some of those weaknesses the offensive line shows over the duration of the 2024 season. But back on track to Kaden Wallace. Overall, he's a very good tackle prospect. He's projected to go either round 3 or on day 3. I feel like we could take him with our 100th overall pick, maybe 78, but most likely 100th overall pick. Him and Blake Fisher are two of my favorite right tackle prospects. Amarius Mims is another guy as well. He's my favorite right tackle prospect. He's an absolute beast. I think he had an 86-inch wingspan, which is unbelievable, and he's like 6'7", 6'8". Amarius Mims, he's an amazing tackle prospect. I wouldn't be surprised if we traded up for him in the first round, traded back up into the first round for him, because he's just that good. But I do feel like we need a left tackle. We need to address left tackle before right tackle, because I'm not 100% comfortable with Andrew Wiley as a right tackle next season, but he did look a little better down the stretch in 2023. A little bit, okay? Not much, just a bit, but I don't think, the pressing need at right tackle is that serious as fans make it out to be. So I do feel like we need to address left tackle, sooner than right tackle. But Kaden Wallace, I feel like he could be a plug-and-play right tackle for us if we were to draft him. So next up is another one of my favorite cornerback prospects in the entire draft. Cam Hart has in-person visits with the Bears and Commanders per multiple reports. I'm a big Cam Hart fan. First of all, he's another guy who's from the DMV, I'm pretty sure. Hey man, the DMV really repping this draft. I mean, we got Caleb Williams, Chop Robinson, Kyrie Jackson. He's another cornerback prospect I really like. He's another guy that the Commanders should be interested in my opinion, drafting. And then we got Cam Hart, obviously, along with a couple of other guys. Well, a lot of other guys, actually. There's a lot of DMV prospects in this draft, like I said. But Cam Hart, he's really good. He's seen action in all 4 of his seasons in college. In his freshman year, he only played in 4 games, actually, but he did have 2 pass deflections, which is nice right there. He only has 2 interceptions in his entire career, so his, interception numbers are pretty low, and those 2 interceptions came in his sophomore season in 2021. He had a really good sophomore season, though. He played in all 13 games. He had, 41 total tackles. He had 4.5 TFLs as well. In 2022, he played in 11 games. He had 425 total tackles, 3 TFLs, no interceptions, but he also had 4 pass deflections in 2022. He also had 7 pass deflections in 2021. And in 2023, this past season, played in 12 games, had 21 total tackles, 3 TFLs, no sacks, no interceptions, 4 pass deflections, 1 fumble recovery, and 3 forced fumbles. That 3 forced fumbles, that is very impressive right there. Let's look at his PFF numbers. This past season, he had an 83.3 overall PFF grade. That is absolutely incredible right there. I can't check his PFF grades for the past 3 seasons, but he was really good this past season. I love how physical he is. First of all, he's 6'3". Let me find his exact measurements here. But I know he is 6'3". He measured in at 6'3" at the combine, I'm pretty sure. I'm pulling it up right now. Yeah, he's 6'3", 202 pounds. Like I said, he's from Baltimore, Maryland. So he is, he was born and raised in the DMV. He ran a 4.5 at the combine, which isn't the fastest, but it's not bad for a guy his size. I mean, 6'3", 202 pounds. That's pretty good in my opinion. Like I said, his production is a bit low. It's actually funny because on NFL.com, his, comparison, his comp is Benjamin St-Juste, which is very interesting, but I'm just going to assume it's because of their sizes. I mean, Benjamin St-Juste, he's what, 6'3", 200 plus pounds. Kim Hart, he's 6'3", 202 pounds. So their sizes, they have basically the same size. But he has very rare blend of elite size and plus athleticism. Like I stated, he had one of his best games in his collegiate career against Marvin Harrison Jr. when Notre Dame played Ohio State this season. I think they played him in 2022 as well. So he was really good against Marvin Harrison. He uses his size and length for aggressive reroute during press. And like I stated, he is very physical at the line of scrimmage. Now, some of his weaknesses, he had surgeries on both shoulders during his career. So, there's some injury, troubles right there, some injury concerns right there. But that shouldn't be too much of a concern in my opinion. He's a bit inconsistent in getting his head around and finding the football on deep passes. So that's something he does need to work on. But we do have Tom Donatell, from the Chargers, who, the Chargers, secondary wasn't great last year, but I feel like Tom Donatell, or, Jason Simmons, he was a really good, defensive coach for the Raiders over the past couple of seasons. I think he can really help develop Cam Hart into a very, very, very good cornerback in the NFL. So those are some of his weaknesses, and like I said, disappointing career ball production despite his physical traits. But I feel like he will have solid ball production. Like I said, I'm looking for a lockdown quarterback over ball production in my opinion. Emmanuel Forbes, I honestly liked Emmanuel Forbes a little bit last year, but I prefer Christian Gonzalez because he had pretty solid ball production in his career, but he was a lockdown cornerback. He was a for sure lockdown quarterback, and Emmanuel Forbes, he wasn't completely locked down. He did get beat a couple of times against like Devontae Smith back in 2020, but Devontae Smith, he was an elite, wide receiver, and we all knew he was the best wide receiver back in 2020, so I don't really fall there, but he did get beat a couple of times in his career, so I want a lockdown quarterback, and I feel like Cam Hart could be that lockdown quarterback for us. So, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, leave a like down below, subscribe, turn on notifications. Watch out for the part 2 to this top 30 visits update. I will post either later today or maybe tomorrow. Comment down below whether or not you think the Commanders should draft any of these players they have visited with so far. And other than that, it's been King Sean, and I'm out. Peace.